There is a type of silence that brings not peace, but weight. The silence that remains after someone leaves, or after you leave. It is in that moment, when there are no voices left to blame, and no one to prove anything to, that a brutal truth imposes itself. It is possible to live without people, and perhaps even better. Yes, the world trained us to seek belonging as if it were oxygen. But stop and look around. How many lives have been sunk because of that need? Marriages maintained by fear, friendships sustained by obligation, families that are prisons with a surname. We are taught from childhood that we need others to be complete. But what if that idea is a mistake? Not an innocent mistake, but a systemic, corrosive error that hijacks our freedom with the promise of human warmth. In Medea, Euripides writes about a woman who, betrayed and discarded, kills her own children to hurt the man who abandoned her. It is a myth, but it is also a mirror. What are we capable of when we put everything into the other person? And what if the other person fails? This video is about that. Not about the exaltation of solitude, nor the cult of the ego, but about something rarer and more dangerous. The real, deep joy of needing no one. Of not being in debt to any presence, any affection, any gaze. We are going to explore what happens when the lake fills up again. When, like Zhuangzi's fish, we can finally swim free without needing to lick the mud off each other to survive. The freedom of not needing. This is what we are going to unearth now, but be careful. Whoever listens to this attentively rarely thinks the same way again. First came the heat, then the dry wind. The lake dried up in silence, like an old animal ceasing to breathe. Many centuries ago, in the kingdom of Chu, the drought transformed a mirror of water into a cracked field. The fish, now orphans of the lake, dragged their bodies across the hot mud. They struggled, suffocating, and the only possible gesture was grotesque and moving. They passed saliva to each other to keep their gills moist. Zhuangzi, the Taoist sage, saw this scene. He admired the solidarity among the fish, but he was not enchanted. He asked a question that crosses the centuries. Wouldn't it be better if the lake were full? This is the fable of the full lake. It is about what remains when necessity unites us, and what happens when it disappears. In the past, we were all fish in puddles. Humans stuck to each other for lack of alternatives. Communities were the mud that prevented us from drying out. Mutual aid was inevitable, because without it, death was certain. And this created a myth that we drag along to this day, that of the sacred collectivity, of romantic interdependence, of community as a cure. But Zhuangzi planted another seed, a gentle heresy. Perhaps the true good is not needing the other, but being able to choose the other, or not. Today, the lake is full. Technology, comfort, stability, although unequally distributed, created a world where we no longer need the saliva of others to survive. And yet, many still live like fish trapped in the mud. They maintain relationships out of fear, confuse need with love, call what is actually lack loyalty. The full lake does not eliminate affection, it simply transforms it. In the full lake, fish can swim together, but they do not need to touch each other to survive. They have a choice. And this is the essential lesson. The end of need is not the end of connection. It is the beginning of freedom. You are not ungrateful for needing no one. You are free. And freedom, sometimes, is more generous than any forced hug. Today, at this precise moment, millions of people are living for the first time in their lives without depending on anyone. Some feel loneliness, others feel relief, but all are swimming for the first time. True freedom begins when you realize you need no one, and that scares you. This is the disturbing idea, because everything in our culture, from religion to advertising, from pop songs to wedding vows, has taught us that emotional independence is synonymous with emptiness, that living without dependence is living badly. But what if it were the opposite? What if dependence were civilization's best disguised vice? What if attachment were, as Krishnamurti said, fear camouflaged as love? Let us get to the point. Being alone does not mean being empty. It means being complete. Society trained us to confuse presence with fullness. But, as Blaise Pascal wrote, all of humanity's unhappiness stems from a single thing: not knowing how to remain quietly in a room. Pascal is not talking about reclusion, but about inner self-sufficiency. He speaks of the human horror of silence, of not having anyone as a distraction or a mirror. And that horror is precisely what keeps us in fragile, noisy, and inauthentic relationships. If I depend on you not to collapse, I do not love you, I use you. If you are my ground, my air, my reason for living, then I do not exist without you. And that is not love, it is emotional servitude. The ethics of true love demands independence. Simone Weil, mystic and philosopher, said, "Pure love is that which sees the other as they are, without desiring to possess them. But it is only possible to see someone as they are when we do not need them to save us. That is why solitude is feared. It is the test of the authenticity of the self. It is there that you discover whether your choices are yours or whether they are just echoes of others' expectations." Nietzsche was relentless here. For him, the herd morality, based on acceptance, dependence, living for others, is the main poison of the free spirit. In Twilight of the Idols, he writes, "What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil." But he also states that genuine love requires overcoming the end of lack, the end of moral domestication. The Nietzschean Übermensch is the one who can be alone and therefore can choose. He needs no one, and precisely for that reason he does not manipulate, does not submit, does not humble himself for affection. This is the paradox. The more you need people, the less you truly love them. Einstein said, "I have a deep sense of social responsibility, but a radical detachment from the people around me." He was not cold, he was free. The same freedom that allowed him to create, think, and contribute without the contamination of the need for approval. And this is not an apology for isolation, but a realization. Only those who manage to be alone are ready for any relationship, because they enter by choice, not by hunger. Affective dependence is a romantic lie. True, emotional, spiritual, existential maturity only begins when you stop needing. When you are able to sit in the center of your own room, with no audience, no savior, and say, "I am enough." From there, any presence is a gift, never again a crutch. We want to belong, and by belonging, we lose ourselves. This is one of the cruelest contradictions of the human experience. The community promises warmth, but demands conformity. It promises shelter, but delivers surveillance. It is the ancient dilemma of the one who enters the group. Either you adapt, or you disappear. The desire to belong is real. It is deeply rooted. We are beings who want bonds. But what do those bonds demand of us? The small village, the family WhatsApp group, the closed work environment, all have something in common. Peace is fragile, and freedom is conditional. Anthropologist Mary Douglas demonstrated that, in traditional societies, the group regulates everything: behavior, language, even what is considered truth, and the same mechanism is still alive today. Just do not follow the group's tone. Just question, be absent, do not laugh at the joke. And immediately, the foreign body begins to be rejected. Carl Jung experienced this intimately. Upon marrying, he wrote in his diary, "I am no longer alone with myself, and only artificially can I regain the terrifying and beautiful feeling of solitude. Love, even the deepest, comes with a price. The partial renunciation of autonomy, and this applies to all human coexistence. The more intimate the community, the higher the surveillance." Jean-Paul Sartre said that hell is other people, not out of contempt, but because the presence of the other turns us into an object. In the group, we are seen, and by being seen, we feel the pressure to correspond to the expectation of that gaze. Schopenhauer denounced this vice with precision. People think too much about what others think of them, when, with a minimum of reflection, they would see that this is not essential for happiness. But few people withstand this reasoning until the end, because living without the group's approval is almost an emotional taboo. That is why so many live with forced laughter, the pose of success, the silences that hide uncomfortable truths. The group demands characters and charges dearly for anyone who tries to take off the mask. Drama is not a deviation from coexistence. It is a symptom of it. Where there is need, there is demand. Where there is demand, there is conflict. The human theater begins when we do not have the freedom to leave. Contemporary psychology confirms this. Relationships based on emotional dependence tend to be more volatile and unstable. Not because there is less love, but because there is more fear of abandonment, rejection, exclusion. And fear makes everything dramatic. How many times do we endure abuse, subtle humiliations, or emotional blackmail just because we cannot lose that person? How many times do we swallow opinions, omit ideas, or betray ourselves in silence to continue belonging? How many times do we stay where we do not want to be? Because leaving would mean breaking with an entire network of bonds that sustain our identity. It is easy to confuse belonging with security. But the group does not protect us, it shapes us. And sometimes, what the group demands in exchange for protection is too high. Our singularity. Nietzsche warned us against this trade-off. He said that the common man seeks comfort, acceptance, tranquility, and therefore renounces his inner strength. The Übermensch, on the contrary, chooses the risk of difference. He prefers solitude to uniformity. He prefers the margin to the mold. Community is valuable, yes, but it was never neutral. It offers warmth, but it imposes uniformity. It welcomes, but it also watches. And when we depend on it for everything, for identity, security, affection, we become emotional hostages to a theater that demands constant sacrifice. It takes courage to get out of the hot mud of need and swim alone in the full lake. Because sometimes, true peace is not at the common bonfire. It is in the closed room, in the restoring silence, in the freedom of not having to smile to be accepted. There is a silent scene that repeats itself in thousands of apartments around the world. A woman who has just left a 10-year marriage walks to the center of the living room, sits on the floor, and smiles for the first time in months. There is no one to ask why. There is no explanation to give. There is only absence, and with it, a new form of joy. The end of a relationship that was necessary may seem like a tragedy to those who view it from the outside. But, for the one who left, it can be the first experience of real freedom. Not because they want to be alone, but because, now, being alone is an option. Relationships born out of need have an expiration date. They are fragile, conditional, reactive, and, above all, based on fear. Fear of scarcity, of loneliness, of social rejection, of failure, of what if no one else wants me? But no relationship sustained by fear deserves the name of love. This is the radical change of our time. What was once mandatory is now optional, and the option in itself transforms everything. In past centuries, being alone was practically a social condemnation. Women were pressured to marry to survive. Men anchored themselves in marriage to maintain stability. Mutual dependence was absolute, and therefore, breaking up was unthinkable. But that was not romanticism. It was survival. Today, we no longer need each other, and it is precisely because of this that we can finally find each other. Schopenhauer wrote, "The man who needs no one is the most powerful of beings, not in the sense of domination, but in the sense of emotional freedom. He does not love because he needs, he loves because he wants to, and therefore he loves better." Culture has not yet understood this. It tries to convince us that the decline of marriages, the increase in separations, the looser bonds, are signs of moral decadence. But perhaps they are the opposite, signs of affective maturity. Perhaps we are witnessing the birth of a new model of affection, free from compulsion, free from need. This does not mean an absence of commitment. It means that commitment is now voluntary, and therefore, more authentic. In the emotional economy of the past, presence was currency. In the present one, only those who wish to stay remain. And this eliminates all blackmail, all pretense, all staging of affection to ensure survival. It is true. By ending need, we increase loneliness, but we also clear the ground for whole relationships. Made of true desire and not disguised urgency. Albert Camus said, "Not being loved is merely bad luck. The worst is not to know how to love. But to know how to love, one must first not need. A love born of despair is hunger. A love born of autonomy is choice. And only the one capable of being alone can choose with truth. Everything else is bargaining. Being yourself comes with a price. You are going to lose people. This is the cost of authenticity. The one who chooses his own truth renounces the comfort of approval. There is no way to be complete and, at the same time, be accepted by everyone, because the social world does not tolerate those who do not fit in. Every society is, to some extent, a theater. It offers settings, roles, costumes, rehearsed dialogues. It rewards those who act well and punishes those who dare to step out of the script. But there is a point in life, and it comes for all who are awake, where the price of applause becomes too high. At that moment, you either lie to keep the audience, or you leave the stage. And there begins the most difficult solitude, that of being seen as you really are. The courage not to be loved is the final test of emotional freedom. It is easy to be loved when you adapt. It is easy to belong when you are silent. It is easy to have company when you dissolve yourself. The truly difficult thing is to be surrounded by people and still choose your own truth, even if it costs side glances, discreet withdrawals, veiled criticisms. The difficult thing is to say, "I do not need them," and remain at peace, but that is the only way to achieve what Sartre called existential authenticity. To live from the inside out, without letting the eyes of others define us inwardly. Because when the other looks, they delimit, classify, expect something from us. And every time we try to correspond to that gaze, we move a little further away from who we are. That is why the freest are often the most solitary. Because the freedom to be demands a break with the desire to please. Nietzsche took this idea to the limit. For him, living as a free spirit meant not only breaking with the morality of the majority, but creating new values, even if no one understood them. He wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. But to find that why, one must first abandon all the hows that were imposed on us, and this includes the childish desire to be loved by everyone." It is not about despising bonds, but about not molding one's own face to fit into the mirror of the other, to love without losing oneself, to coexist without betraying oneself. This is the final conquest of the one who needs no one, the capacity to remain whole in presence and absence, in affection and silence, in praise and rejection. And that freedom, arduous, solitary, almost unpronounceable, is the only one that allows a genuine life. In the end, not being loved is a risk, but being false to be accepted is a sentence. If you have made it this far, it is because something inside you has also tired of the mud of need. You are part of a lucid, courageous, and restless minority, and that is why this channel exists. If you want to help us continue creating videos like this, become a member now. Besides directly supporting the project, you will have access to exclusive content, behind the scenes, and a closer relationship with everything we build here. And even if you only watch, comment, or share, that is already immense support. You are part of this space, and that is enough. Thank you truly to each of the members who keep this flame burning. You are not alone, and you do not need to be. See you in the next video.